It's time for us to cover another segment of Nick Shirley shenanigans. We're going to start with his TikTok, and then we're going to read the actual bill text, and then we're going to watch his video. Okay, so we're gonna arm you with all the information, dear chatters, dear viewers. We're gonna arm you with all the information, so you're gonna know ahead of time exactly what Nick Shirley is lying about, and we're gonna have the text. I'll pull it up on screen. We're gonna disprove it as it happens. So let's start with his TikTok, where he tries to build a little hype.
All right, check this out. This is a bit crazy. California Democrats advance Stop Nick Shirley Act to criminalize investigative journalism.
So notice how the website he's on is ad75.asmrc.org, and the video that he shows, California Democrats advance the Stop Nick Shirley Act to criminalize investigative journalism. The act is called Privacy for Immigration Support Services Providers. Admittedly, not as cool of a name. Not as cool of a name as the Stop Nick Shirley Act. That's a little more punchy, and that's why Republicans are using that name, so that attention spreads faster.
Criminalize investigative journalism. So after I expose widespread fraud all across America, and quite frankly, states like Minnesota and California are just the worst at it, letting fraud take place, especially inside of immigrant communities. For instance, the Somalians in Minnesota and then the Armenians in California.
I do like how he said Somalians in Minnesota, but his text got it right. They're Somali people.
Minnesota and then the Armenians in California. And so now they're trying to silence anybody who exposes fraud inside of California.
Just a real quick reminder, the only allusion to Armenians in California that he threw out was when he was riding in the back of that car with that Darren Stalkup kid, and he mentioned there's rumors that it's Armenian mobsters that run all these businesses. And then at the end, when he cut to some guy that didn't want him harassing the various businesses, and then they just insinuated that he was also an Armenian mobster. That's the proof that Nick Shirley is bringing here.
For instance, if this bill is passed, the Quality Learning Center that was in Minnesota would be protected from being exposed. That is absolutely crazy. And the crazy thing about this is the person who's proposing this bill, her name is Mia Bonta. Her husband is the Attorney General of California. And so let's say you expose fraud. This is what could happen to you inside the state of California. You could get a misdemeanor.
Notice how he phrased that. If you expose fraud, you could get in trouble. We're going to let Nick Shirley finish here, but then we're going to go over the text of the bill. Keep in mind, that is not what it says. It doesn't say if you expose fraud.
$10,000 fine, imprisonment, and your content forced to be deleted. That is absolutely crazy. It is time for people to either stand up or we face mass oppression from those that rule us.
Let's now read the bill. Now, admittedly, not the most entertaining content right now. We're just going to read the bill. Existing law prohibits a person, business, or association from knowingly publicly posting or publicly displaying, disclosing, or distributing on internet websites or on social media the personal information or image of any designated healthcare services patient, provider, or assistant, or other individuals residing at the same home address with the intent to incite a third person to cause imminent great bodily harm to the person identified in the posting or display, or to a co-resident of that person, or to threaten the person identified in the posting display, or a co-resident of that person. So this is very, very technical, but what they're saying is you're not allowed to display the information of these people. You're not allowed to just post that information. That's what they're talking about. Existing law additionally prohibits a person, business, or association from soliciting, selling, or trading on the internet or social media the personal information or image of a designated healthcare services patient, provider, or assistant with the intent described above. Existing law establishes a cause of action for injunctive or declarative relief for a violation of these prohibitions. What does this mean? This means that you're not allowed to get information from a public website, go to a place, and start harassing them and posting their name, face, and details in your video. It's very specifically going after what's known as doxing. So when Nick Shirley says, if you investigate fraud, you could have to pay a $10,000 fine. No. If you expose people's information, if you just dox them, especially for the purpose of creating a YouTube video and getting clicks, that's where you get in trouble. So we've laid this out. We're going to continue reading just to make sure we get it. Existing law prohibits a person from posting on the internet or social media with the intent that another person imminently use that information to commit a crime involving violence or a threat of violence against a designated healthcare services patient, provider, assistant, or other individuals residing at the same address, blah, 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 blah. The personal information or image of a reproductive healthcare services patient, provider, you can't post their information, their image. Existing law makes a violation of this prohibition punishable by a fine. So here's what he's talking about. $10,000 per violation, imprisonment as specified, or both, which usually only happens if you're like a multiple time offender of something. They usually hit you with a fine first, and then a bigger fine, and then a fine and imprisonment. It's rare. You have to be super egregious to go straight to imprisonment. This bill would similarly establish an address confidentiality program for a designated immigration support services provider, employee, volunteer, as defined, who faces threats of violence or harassment from the public because of their affiliation with a designated immigration support services facility. So they're saying that they would provide assistance to people who are harassed in this manner. This bill would additionally prohibit a person, business, or association from soliciting, selling, or trading on the internet the personal information or image of a designated immigration support services provider, employee, or volunteer with the intent described above. They have to lay out every single step of this, right? Because it's a law. And if you don't lay it all out, you get in trouble. Because you have a right to privacy, right? Even if you're a bad person in America, you still have rights, and you have a right to privacy. So that's what this is covering. These are definition of terms. Harassment is repeated, unreasonable, and unwelcome conduct directed at a target individual that would cause an unreasonable person to fear for their own safety or the safety of a household member. Harassing conduct may include, but it is not limited to, following: stalking, telephone calls, or written correspondence. We've gone over the summary of the bill. We've got the text here if we need it. We can come back to this and refer to it. But so far, it seems pretty straightforward. This bill just lays out very specific instructions. You're not allowed to gather and then proliferate this information. Just because someone works for a business that you might be thinking is fraudulent doesn't mean you have the right to share their face, their information, their details. All of that stuff has limits, especially in the case of Nick Shirley. I think it would be one thing if he gathered this information and then he brought it to the authorities and he said, look, I've done this investigation. I think this is wrong. And then he also recorded a video about it. But instead, what Nick Shirley does is he just gets the information, goes to a place, yells at a lot of people, and then when he doesn't feel like anyone has disproven him, he just racks up all the numbers and say, I found it. I found all the fraud. That's not an honest way of reporting. Without further ado, let's get to Nick Shirley's newest video. I investigated California's Stop Nick Shirley Act.
What do you think about the Stop Nick Shirley Act?
I think you're a psycho scam artist.
They don't want to end their fraud racket. A lot of the politicians, they benefit from the political organizations, and so they want this racket to continue. They don't want the truth to get out.
Stop fraud investigations, but you're the one who signed off and you're a co-author of it. Here in California, they are trying to pass the Stop Nick Shirley Act. The official title of this bill is AB 2624, and today we're going to be confronting the legislators that are trying to pass this bill. And if this bill were to get passed, instead of going after the fraudsters, they're trying to make it criminal to go after the people that are committing this fraud. For instance, it would become criminal to film and reveal info on taxpayer-funded immigration services like healthcare, which would include daycare, hospices.
Hey, look at these crimes I'm doing. Look at these crimes I'm doing.
It also covers counseling services, translation services, and immigration legal services. So for instance, if the Quality Learning Center was inside of California, it would be illegal to expose them. It would make it illegal to film government-funded NGOs. And this bill essentially wants to shield the info of immigrant support services from the public. So
notice how he says essentially there, and that's because there's nothing in the bill that actually says that. They're ascribing additional duties to this bill. Everything he said here is stretched and mostly false. He's right that like you're not allowed to record these things, but it's for the purpose of just displaying that information. There's very, very real differences between real reporting, actual journalism, and what Nick Shirley does. Real reporting doesn't just display everybody's face and information the whole time you're asking questions, the whole time you're pretending to be a just curious bro. Real reporting gets that information, confirms it, and then will share what's relevant. And once they've concluded something, then they can share a business name. But Nick Shirley just gets public information off of a website, assumes all of it is fraudulent, and therefore records everything. And that's what this bill seeks to stop.
Your tax dollars, you'd have no idea where it's going because it would then become confidential, and you would not be able to see how much money that NGO is getting if it's going towards immigrant services.
Okay, so ignoring the fact that Nick Shirley really struggled to finish that sentence, all of this information came from a public website, which means that, yes, you would have access to that information. The only difference is twerps like Nick Shirley wouldn't be able to go around and yell at people until they can't give him the information and then rack up numbers like he's done really good math.
And what makes this bill super interesting is the lady who created this bill, her name is Mia Bonta. Her husband is the Attorney General of California named Rob Bonta. You cannot make this up. So you have the Attorney General who's supposed to prosecute and go after the fraudsters, and then you have his wife who's trying to pass bills to go after the people exposing the fraud. Like,
this is only weird because they're framing it as though it's going after people exposing fraud. No, it's going after people that are displaying information from everywhere they go, and that's not legal. That's what's called doxing.
seriously, this is absolutely crazy. And the AG Rob Bonta just a few days ago said they are cracking down on the fraud way before certain people came into the state.
We've been doing it successfully before certain people in this country decided to think about it for the first time.
However, it was only after I exposed over $100 million in fraud they actually made any arrest here inside of California. Let's say this bill gets passed. What could happen to you if you expose fraud or go and look into immigration services? Well, you could receive a $4,000 fine underneath a civil fine, a $10,000 fine if it's criminal, and a $50,000 fine if it becomes a felony. You may also face...
Why is Nick Shirley skipping what it needs to be those things? He's just listing out dollar amounts and saying it could be really bad. You have to meet certain criteria in order to reach criminal and felony levels. And then a civil suit is someone has to file that against you, and then they have to prove it in court.
Potential imprisonment, and your content be forced to be taken down. This is a complete violation of the First Amendment, as they are trying to take down and suppress your own speech, make it so you can't film in public, which is taking away your freedom of press. There's a whole lot of issues with this bill, and today we're going to be confronting those that co-authored, signed, and passed this bill. And so truly, every single day here in America, you are learning more and more about the fraud that is taking place. And if you want to become a member of the Anti-Fraud Club and help me as I go all around the country to expose this fraud, go join at antifraudclub.com. It is completely free, and hoodies are also available on the site. And really quick, let's go speak with an assemblyman who knows more about this bill before we go and confront them. Now let's get into the video.
I will say, and this is for everybody in the comments section that likes to say I don't give this kid any credit, he is at least at the Capitol talking to people that can answer his questions. At least in this situation, he can't just badger, well, I shouldn't speak too soon, he might, but at least so far, he can't badger people that are just working a front desk job. He has to actually talk to Congress people, lawmakers in the state of California, and at least their staff, people that are armed with the correct information.
What's the truth about the Stop Nick Shirley Act?
So you've heard a lot of people trying to call you a liar. Why don't we just read the bill? I think that's what everybody just needs to know. So
we just did this too, so it'll be interesting to see how they read this.
In this section of AB 2624, which we call the Stop Nick Shirley Act, it says a person, business, or association shall not publicly post or publicly display, disclose, or distribute on the internet or social media the personal information or image of a designated immigration support service provider, employee, or volunteer if that individual or individual entity or organization authorized on the act of their behalf. And that's just some of the language. But
has made a written demand of that person, business, or association to not disclose the personal information or that image. Why are you stopping? Why are you stopping and saying that this is legalese?
What does that mean, immigration support services provider?
You're see, and that is where the devil is in the details. Designated Immigration Support Services Facility means a facility where immigration support services are provided, including, but not limited to, nonprofit organization offices, Department of Justice recognized entities, community legal clinics, law offices, accredited representative sites that provide immigration legal services, and healthcare facilities. They threw that into designated immigration support service facilities, healthcare facilities.
And healthcare is at the very bottom of this. Mm-hmm. But that's where a lot of the fraud's taking place, inside of...
That's one definition among many.
Medi-Cal, for instance. The hospices, the daycares are with CalWorks, but they're with anything to have to do with immigrants, essentially, could not and is actually punishable.
Again, no. Oh my God. It is not that anything that you reveal is punishable. It's specifically the section that he read out, and we'll go back to it. Specifically the section that he read out. A person, business, or association shall not publicly post or publicly display, disclose, distribute on the internet the personal information or image of the, and then it lists the people, has made a written demand of that person. So it says you shall not publicly do that if they have made a written demand of that person to not disclose the information. The section that they're talking about doesn't lay that out. They're skipping sections now.
But that's where a lot of the fraud's taking place, inside of Medi-Cal. For instance, the hospices, the daycares are with CalWorks, but they're with anything to have to do with immigrants, essentially could not and is actually punishable.
You're 100% right. And that's where
Neither of you are 100% right. I'm surprised that the congressman here is struggling this hard with this, because they talked about a very specific section that talks about if you've been asked not to do it, you get in trouble for it. Other parts of the law also say that if you disclose these with the intent to harm or mislead people, that's also punishable. But they're not talking about that right now. They're just trying to frame this as, aha, if you get caught investigating, we're going to get you in trouble. No, it's if you dox people.
Again, the devil is in the details. Their definition of harassment is repeated, unreasonable, and unwelcome conduct. What is unwelcome conduct? Simply you asking questions today, can that be considered unwelcome? What do they mean by things that you could generally fear? So if they say the words, I was harassed by Nick Shirley, if you were out videotaping a hospice, you would fall under this, because healthcare facilities is a designated immigration support service facility. That is part of the definition. It is written here that if you post this online and they give you a demand made under that paragraph, shall be effective for 4 years, where you could be punished. So what people really need to know is that the state of California is deciding to punish the journalists out there that are doing the work and exposing the fraud, instead of punishing the fraudsters.
Again, not at all what the bill says. The bill says that if you dox people, they have a right to address it. The bill simply says you're not allowed to post that information, especially if the person has asked you not to do that. All of this falls by the wayside when a real investigation is done by a real reporter. These guys are still just operating on the idea that Nick Shirley falls under the category of a real reporter doing real fact-finding, and he's not.
Government that diminishes transparency has something to hide.
And what are some more crazy things about this bill?
There's a section in this bill that says any records or documents pertaining to a program participant shall be held confidential.
I don't see what's wrong with this. All of this still falls to the wayside if fraud is actually being properly investigated. This just stops randoms from shoving a camera in people's face and making them look stupid on the internet for profit.
So there are workarounds in this bill that will hide information that if you wanted to find online the Quality Learning Center, all of these areas can be now moved around and shifted. They are making it harder to find the people's money when we should be making it easier, when we have already proven that in 3 cases alone in the state of California, $500 million in fraud. Thank you for that.
And so essentially an NGO or a daycare, anything that falls underneath immigration support providers, their information would then become confidential.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly right, is that they can hide it because they have changed the definitions. Designated Immigration Support Services Facility also includes healthcare facilities, also includes nonprofit organizations, and not only that, areas that the Department of Justice actually recognizes those entities. It's such a broad thing, so you can cover everything. And then when you look at those definitions, when I read you the bill, I am reading the physical bill. So when they call you a liar, how? How are you lying? How, when you have all of the information in front of you, and it's a front when you
Notice how they keep tripping over their words, and that's because they are not good faith actors. What the bill prohibits is the just sharing of all this information because you have a hunch. This speaks to vigilante justice, because if you rile enough people up like Nick Shirley does by putting out these sensational stories, people are going to take action. Something called stochastic terrorism takes place, where someone just does enough reporting, just asks enough questions, and then other people will take action. That's part of what this bill seeks to get ahead of. Guys like Nick Shirley just start posting this information that they found, and they frame it in a way that makes people honestly believe, oh, they're all guilty. And eventually someone's going to take action, and they're probably not going to take action legally. They're probably not going to take action by just calling the FBI or calling the state authorities. They're likely to do something much worse. That's why this bill exists, because guys like Nick Shirley, and he's not the only one, right? Tyler Oliveira does this in different forms. There's so many like pseudo journalists that go around and just get some publicly available information, shove cameras in people's faces, and when they don't get like good explanations that actually handle all the topics, they just go, aha, it's all fraud. Isn't it all fraud? Let me make a lot of money on YouTube.
You sit down and you actually talk about it, you know it's a coordinated effort to steal from the people of California.
In that same day, an assemblyman, Carl DeMaio, brought forth a motion to push for more transparency on this bill. However, it was then shut down by the Democrats inside of the assembly to not give any more transparency. And as I was explaining this, one of the co-authors passed by, and it was now my time to confront these legislators who are pushing forth this bill. Here's one of the authors of the bill. How are you guys doing? We just want to ask you about the bill and why you guys would pass this bill that really is an attack on free speech.
I am not even sure what you're talking about.
Really?
You said an author. I don't think
Yes,
I'm an
did you
author.
pass on, did you sign to pass this bill? The AB 26?
No, I don't
24?
know what you're talking about.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
You do not.
No,
Are you
guys
serious?
are just talking about something random.
We're talking about something random. Okay.
So this seems like a situation where Shirley has something that he's trying to talk about right now. She just came out of a committee meeting, and yeah, it doesn't look good if he rattles off the number and she doesn't know what she's talking about. But if you notice there, she's one of a lot of co-authors. And the way that bills work is you have an author, someone who authored the bill. And I know he said, oh, aren't you an author? Because he doesn't understand the difference between author and co-author. He thinks, well, co-author means also an author, so you're the same thing. When he says, didn't you author this bill? She, as a congressperson, is immediately running down the bills that she has specifically authored and proposed, and instead she's a co-author. You might say this is a bit of a distinction without a difference, and I'm not that inclined to totally disagree with you. Like, co-authors, though, sign on to a bill after it has been proposed and read. Authors had a hand in crafting the legislation and are usually at the forefront of pushing a bill. Co-authors are people that did not get involved in writing the legislation, but sign on to it. A little bit of a semantics difference, but it is part of why she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Also, the fact that Nick Shirley is purposely framing these bills in the loosest and most broad ways possible. When you say, oh, this bill, it's really essentially just anti-free speech, that doesn't tell them which bill you're working with. Now, he did rattle off the number kind of fast, but I assume that she's already kind of like trying to get away from this little twerp. I don't think it looks good on her part that this interaction played out this way, of course. Again, so many variables, and Nick Shirley can't handle any of them.
Sasha, how are you doing? We just want to ask you about the bill AB 2624. Why would you sign off on that? It's a direct violation of the First Amendment, and it makes it harder for people to expose fraud here.
We have Ledge Council. They check the constitutionality of all our bills as we're writing them. I work on fraud issues. You'd know that if you look at some of the work I did on the budget subcommittee.
Amazing. So the
Notice how he does that when he gets tired of them talking. You go, okay, amazing. He's trying to lock in on what he wants to say because Nick Shirley is not a real interviewer. He's a person who asks questions and then is waiting for an appropriate moment to respond. That is a way of arguing, but it's not a very high intellectual way of communicating.
Her husband's Attorney General of the Attorney General of California, and it was only until I exposed fraud that they actually cracked down on the fraud and made some arrests here, especially with the hospices. And do you know that if this bill were to pass, it'd make it illegal for someone to go after fraud, especially if it's based off of...
He's so bad at asking questions, dude. Just think about what you want to say and have like an actual point.
...of immigrants, for instance, Armenians in California.
No, I think that that's a misinterpretation of the bill, but I'm happy to talk with you more about it. And fraud and investigations into fraud are something that's been happening for a very long time. The Attorney General handles those cases. This is an ongoing issue.
It's a little weird that the wife of the Attorney General, Mia Bonta, is now pushing this bill that literally goes against the First Amendment.
No, I actually don't.
Just as a reminder, it doesn't go against the First Amendment because you do not have a right to share other people's personal information. You have a right to do investigations or whatever Nick Shirley thinks he's doing here, but you don't have the right to just share other people's personal info on a whim.
I don't think that this bill violates the First Amendment. I mean,
Really?
that's the whole purpose. We have Ledge Council and Ledge attorneys that talk with us about this. Constitutionality is really important to the work.
So your bill criminalizes publication of images recorded in public. Do you believe the government has the right to punish journalists for filming in public space?
No, I think that is a complete misinterpretation of actually the
No, because
piece of legislation.
That is not. That's literally what would happen.
That might be literally what you think is going to happen, but the bill is still being considered and passed. Like it hasn't taken effect yet. He's so bad at this.
Yes. How are you doing? What do you think about the Stop Nick Shirley Act? AB 2624.
I don't know anything about it.
And do you think there's any conflict of interest there with Mia Bonta and her husband being the AG? That just shows you everything you need to know. These people won't even
It shows you that he says he doesn't know anything about it.
answer the questions. So you signed off, you're a co-author of the AB 2624 bill. What made you want to sign off on this bill that would literally make it so NGOs don't have to disclose their money?
Again, not what the bill says. It doesn't say they don't have to disclose their money. It says that you, as a kid with a camera, can't just share their information without doing a proper investigation.
You have to go back and look at the materials from that committee hearing.
Okay, and what, for instance, just answer the question. Why does your bill apply to organizations receiving taxpayer money? Shouldn't publicly funded entities have more transparency, not less?
Restate the question?
Yes, so entities that receive money from the government, shouldn't there be more transparency and not less?
I think we want to make sure that we are being accountable to public funds.
Yes, and so you signed off on a bill that would make that harder to have transparency.
Well, I don't think I see it that way. I think that we're making sure that, all of our systems are able to get the money out to community and that there's transparency and accountability incorporated.
But you're literally signed off on a bill that would make it for less transparency, sir.
That's debatable, and I don't
It's
agree.
not debatable.
He says it's not debatable, but let's read it. Except as provided in subdivision, any records or documents pertaining to a program shall be held confidential, which means you're not allowed to share them. Like, you are not allowed to share them. Except as provided in that subdivision, which we haven't shown that subdivision, so I could probably go and read it, but I really just want to see how Nick Shirley presents this. All records or documents pertaining to a program participant shall be retained for a period of 3 years after termination of certification and then destroyed without further notice.
They're going for immigration-based services. They're trying to make it harder for money to be disclosed.
Thanks.
Look, they just run off.
Oh,
How are you doing?
I just want to say hi. So, great work. Very
Thank you.
proud of what you're doing.
And how come you think that they're just signed off on a bill that would make it harder for organizations that receive taxpayer dollars to be?
I don't agree with it. I think you're on the right track. This is an attack. It should not be. It's not right. You're doing well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're a co-author of the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Oh, you know who I am. My name's Nick Shirley, ma'am. You signed off on the AB 2624 Act. Can you tell us about what you did on that?
I don't even know who you are.
Well, my name's Nick Shirley. But either way, can you tell me about this?
Oh my God, I think Nick Shirley actually thinks the bill is called the Stop Nick Shirley Act. I think there's a chance that he actually thinks that it's called that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
This assembly bill you're trying to pass.
Shirley.
My name's Nick Shirley, ma'am.
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
But could you please just answer any question about the AB 2624 bill? A lot of people are worried about that it's going to stop fraud investigations. But you're the one who signed off and you're a co-author of it. These people,
they're also on the way to meetings. Like, I know that this looks bad, and I'm not saying that this is okay. This is one of my least favorite parts of representative governments is that they have to be at meetings at different times, so they don't have time to answer all these questions, and it leads to a lot of situations where they look really, really bad. They're on their way to a place. You can't be that surprised that they don't have time to stop and listen to you kind of ramble and trip over your own words in an attempt to ask them questions about a bill. Let's be real. One of the worst parts about politicians is there's too much on their plate, and they don't have time to properly look at all of the bills in front of them, and this leads to a lot of confusion, a lot of weird votes. Constituents can rightly go, you're not even reading these bills, you're just voting on them. But that's why they have staff. Like, Nick Shirley should really set up a meeting with these people's staff. It's good that he's trying to talk to them. When he gets these non-answers because they're literally on their way to something, this is when you should set up a meeting with their staff so you can sit down and do an actual long-form interview and get that information. Get the information from the people that are telling this congressperson how to vote. Does Nick Shirley know to do that? Let's find out.
are crazy. They can't even answer your questions about the bills that they're co-authoring. Hello, Mr. Lowenthal. How are you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Doing great. How do you feel about proposing a bill that would put $10,000 fines and potential jail time for publishing a video from a parking lot?
Notice how he lost his train of thought and then had to try to frame it. And when he has to do it himself, when he's off script, it's like, what do you mean, a video from a parking lot? What?
Wait, can you say that to me again?
Exactly.
Yeah, so AB 2624, if a journalist were to go and investigate fraud in an immigrant service company, essentially, from the government that receives taxpayer dollars, they could potentially risk receiving a $10,000 fine with this bill you guys are trying to pass.
Well, I need to read the bill.
But you signed off on the bill. You passed the bill.
What do you mean I passed the bill? I don't know.
It's gone through two times and it's been passed.
What 2 times? Where are you referring to? Are you referring to committee?
Oh my goodness, Nick Shirley can't even form a sentence, bro. He doesn't know. Has it been passed on the House floor? Has it passed like the House and the Senate of the state of California? Oh, no, he's talking about it's passed 2 committee votes. Nick Shirley doesn't even know what that means.
Committees?
Yes.
Which committees?
I can tell you right here if you give me a second. But
speaking of committee, I'm in the privacy committee right now, but
Yep.
I don't think that bill has passed before my committee.
he's a co-author of it.
Again, co-author just means that someone who authored the bill brought it to you and you said, yeah, that sounds like a good bill, I'll co-author it. You're giving it a tepid stamp of approval. There have been situations where a co-author has voted against their own bill. It's happened.
He's a co-author of that bill. What's your thoughts on this AB 2624 bill? Any response? Like, what would make you guys want to pass this?
Thank you.
Do you think it makes it harder for fraud to get discovered here in the United States? Why can't you guys just answer our questions? You guys are the ones who are signing off on these bills. So what do you think about the Stop Nick Shirley Act, AB 2624? You don't know much about it? Or?
I don't know if I know that.
Oh, well, can I tell you a little bit about it?
I'm okay.
So you should know about it though, because it's kind of your job. So the Stop Nick Shirley Act, what it does is it shields immigrant. Oh, all right, we can keep following you. The Stop Nick Shirley Act shields immigration nonprofit workers from public record disclosure.
Hang on. Where is he getting this list from? This what it does list. I assume that this is not part of the bill text. Yeah, we've got the bill text here, and I don't see that. So what he's showing you right now is someone else's write-up that is slanted, right? And that's fine. That's typical propaganda stuff. But just keep in mind that this is not part of the bill. This text that he's showing at the bottom, in the same place that he's shown actual parts of the bill so far, this is not part of the bill. Just keep that in mind.
It criminalizes publishing images and videos of covered workers, even taken in public, grants covered orgs power to demand video takedowns, imposes a $4,000 civil, $10,000 criminal, $50,000 felony fines per violation, applies to taxpayer-funded organizations. Would you support a bill that allows all that to take place? It is your job. Would you support a bill? Yes or no, ma'am?
Can you take that over? It was so good to meet you. I hope you have a great day.
Ma'am, you're literally working for us, but you won't even answer our own questions. Like these.
Well, no, you have to actually be like a good faith representative of the people and not just a clickbait smear merchant.
People get paid by our tax dollars, yet they can't even answer anything. This is super important. People have a lot of questions about the AB 2624 Act,
so this bill,
aka the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Tell us about it.
Well, there is no Stop Nick Shirley Act, but the author's not here today, but I hope you can find her.
But you're a co-author of this.
I'm a co-author of many bills that protect vulnerable communities in California.
Good, so you should know a lot about this bill. For instance, it shields...
Again, that's not what that means. Nick Shirley doesn't know what a co-author means. Nick Shirley thinks co-author means you also wrote the bill.
Immigration...
Hold on one... Hey.
I hate to disrupt the phone call, but this is important. Wait, come on! Look at that. These guys really just don't want to answer any of the questions. These people won't even answer questions about the bills they're co-authoring.
Welcome to Sacramento. You know, I appreciate you exposing waste, fraud, and abuse. It is rampant in California, just like in Minnesota. And if it wasn't for independent journalists like you, that would not be happening in our state. And I applaud you for doing it. And welcome to Sacramento.
Well, these people are literally signing off on these bills, and they're acting like they don't have any idea what it is, when it really is a direct violation of the First Amendment.
Most of them don't read the bills, but they know what it is. The people that you talk to that co-authored the bill, they know what it is.
It's criminal. And then to think that they're getting paid from the taxpayers of California, yet they can't even answer any questions about these bills that they are co-authors of.
A lot of times when the media will approach them, they deflect often, and that's just the job that they do, and they'll continue to vote. And it's ironic, like I'm the author of SB 14. It's made it a strikeable offense to make sex trafficking of a minor a strike offense in the state of California. And Mia Bonta, we had to get the governor engaged to reverse her decision on the committee to not criminalize sex traffickers, but she wants to criminalize you. That's an ironic situation, huh?
That is very ironic. So
yeah, I'd have to look into the specifics about that sex trafficking bill. But again, they're not trying to criminalize Nick Shirley. They're only trying to criminalize him if he harasses and publicly doxes the people that he's bothering.
AG's wife, the Attorney General's wife, Mia Bonta, she wanted to protect sex traffickers.
She wouldn't vote, and she did not pass a bill in committee a couple of years ago to make sex trafficking a minor child a serious strikeable offense. So if you get a strike and 3 strikes, your life in prison. She wouldn't vote for it. The governor engaged in that process. The next week they passed it out of committee, but she wouldn't criminalize sex traffickers, but she'll criminalize people like you.
That is insane. Mia Bonta, she sounds like quite the lady.
You should meet her one day.
She didn't show up to her own job today, Mia Bonta, didn't it?
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, is this Scott Wiener right here?
Yep, yes he is.
Yes.
Scott Wiener.
Yeah, I gotta look into that sex trafficking bill. Evie brings up that it might also be related to doxing of victims. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the question for Nick Shirley to just completely, just let this lady ramble about unrelated things.
Wiener, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Can you give us your opinion?
Okay, wow. They showed him at Pride. They show him out at what I assume is like a local Pride parade or something. So this is just smearing. You're just attempting to smear this guy. Look at these weird Democrats, right? Look at these weird Democrats.
Thank you very much. Could you give us your opinion really quick on AB 2624?
I think you're a psycho scam artist. So
you think I am? Please disclose how you think that. Look how they just run away. These guys are fools.
Yeah. I like how he appeals to the security guard. He's like, look at how they're just running away. Yeah, man, they're Congress people in an official building. I don't know if this is a cafeteria or if they're headed in for a committee meeting, or I think the one guy said it was the privacy committee. Like, they're literally headed in to do business, dog. What?
Anyways, so right there you have literal co-authors who will not give answers to the bill that they are a part of. Some even said they aren't even co-authors of the bill. And now let's see what the public has to say, and later we'll be speaking with the man, Carl DeMaio, who is in support of getting rid of the Stop Nick Shirley Act. And he'll explain just how dangerous this bill actually is. Do you think they should pass the Stop Nick Shirley Act?
Absolutely not. We need to stop letting politicians get away with fraud and do better for the people of California here in this state.
And
Okay, so this is a guy that doesn't understand what the bill is. He just thinks, oh, Stop Nick Shirley Act, it's after him, and I like what this guy's doing. His videos tickle my brain in enough of a way that I like it.
What's your message to Mia Bonta?
She needs to stay in her lane, stop writing BS bills, and let journalists do their job and find out the truth and give the money back to Californians.
Would be great if there were any journalists pictured in this frame.
And do you think there's a conflict of interest when the Attorney General, his wife, is creating laws to make it harder for people to expose fraud?
Yeah, that is a conflict of interest. I mean, come on, dude.
And right now in Polymarket, there's a 46% chance that the Stop Nick Shirley Act...
Oh my God, we're back to the Polymarket ads, of course. Of course. Reminder to everybody, this is not news. This is not reportable information. Even Nick Shirley sharing the fact that this is what the odds are right now inherently changes the bet, because how many people saw this and decided, yeah, I'll buy a yes, yeah, I'll buy a no.
Becomes law by June 30th.
It might happen here because you got some weird fools over here. I mean, seriously.
That's the truth of it, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. 46% chance that the Stop Nick Shirley Act becomes law, according to Polymarket right now.
In his own image, though, down from 56, however long ago this was, because he's showing us half of a graph.
I see what they've been doing towards you, and it's completely strange. You're just a local news person, and you're an amazing
Not local. He's from Utah. Not local.
journalist, and then somehow they're just like throwing these bites out and like saying that you're this and that. So that's a very weird situation. Weird.
Another lady that seems to not understand what Nick Shirley does and how none of it actually proves anything.
Jesus believers, and we've been praying for the state, and we've been praying for you. He actually, when we were praying, he has sensed that, you know, this state has been drained in terms of wealth, and in terms of abundance because of these people with the policies and the bills that they've been passing. And we believe this is a very important year for California to be saved, literally need to be saved and rescued from everything that had gone on for the last 4 to 5 years, ever since with all these agendas going in and everything. And but we need people to pray, and we need people to speak out, and we need reformers.
We do have an actual conflict of interest.
Oh, Darren Stallcup. So this is not just the public speaks. If you remember from the last video, Darren Stallcup fancies himself an associate of Nick Shirley's. So just remember, this is not just the public. This kid has appeared on Fox News. This kid is considered a Gen Z influencer. He's made a bit of a name for himself already.
Interest when the Attorney General is married to someone who's trying to author a bill to essentially attack our freedom of speech. You know, I would consider this to be a textbook conflict of interest, and I would consider it to be extremely unethical. Every journalist across the country should be pissed right now, because an attack on Nick Shirley is essentially an attack on everybody. We need our freedom of speech. If we don't have our freedom of speech, what do we have? Next step, Second Amendment.
You're one of the few people who have opposed the Stop Nick Shirley Act. What made you oppose this bill?
Because I read the bill. I mean, it's as simple as that. You read the bill and you realize that it's against the First Amendment. It criminalizes citizen investigative journalists who take video and expose fraud. And that's what the bill...
So again, we've gone over this a few times. The bill exposes releasing that information, sharing the personal information of the people who work there. That's what it talks about.
It's designed to do. It's designed to keep secrets, to keep the public from knowing what's going on. They don't want to end their fraud racket. A lot of the politicians, they benefit from the political organizations and various contractors and grantees that are getting money and getting it fraudulently. And so they want this racket to continue. They don't want the truth to get out. That's why they got the Stop Nick Shirley Act. I mean, when I looked at it, I said, clearly, if Nick Shirley had been in California and visited one of our Somali leering centers with no daycares and no kids or a fake hospice, if this bill were enacted, he would be literally hauled into court, injunctive relief, restraining orders, and a lot of money would be penalized to any investigative journalist. They're trying to bully up front, and if anyone has the audacity to videotape and post fraud, to bankrupt them. This is all about bullying and bankrupting citizen journalists.
Not true, because as we read with the bill's text, it's only about if you share the personal information of these people and you're not actually doing any investigating. None of this applies to someone who is proving something wrong. All of this applies to someone who's making implications.
Imagine how outrageous it is to have an organization committing fraud, Somali leering centers with no kids or fake hospices. You show up and you capture the evidence of their misdoings. The operator, the fraudster...
None of this is evidence of their misdoings. It's stuff that could be used as evidence to make a point, but none of it is conclusive. Like, the point of evidence is that it stacks up and it leads you to believe something. And yes, shown on its own, an empty office looks really bad. There are more variables at play, and the fact that this guy is not even accounting for those just makes him incredibly bad faith.
Hands you a business card that just simply says, I hereby insist that you not post the video. That's all they have to do under the law. You then do the right thing. You post the video so the public knows what's going on with their money, and they haul you into court and fine you and penalize you for breaking the law.
Very clever of him to skirt the actual language of the law, in that it's not about, they just ask you not to post it and then you can't. It's about if you share their personal information. What reason do you have to share someone's personal information? If you have proof that a business is acting poorly, you can report that to the authorities and then do a story about it, and then it's not illegitimate. But when you just do this citizen journalism, plausible deniability crap, where you get publicly available information and then go to those places harassing people, don't get any evidence to or against your for or against your claims, and then post that online, that's where it's harassment, that's where it's doxing, because you haven't proven anything. You're just insinuating that someone is doing wrong. And when you leave that insinuation hang there, someone is likely to do something about it. And as we've seen, that could often be an illegal act of retribution, a vigilante justice act. And we can't have that. You're going to have chaos very quickly. That's stochastic terrorism.
That's the way they're going to weaponize this bill against citizen journalists, and we can't allow it to happen. It's against the First Amendment. It will ultimately, if passed, get overturned in the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, it's a chilling of free speech, and it keeps secrets on all the fraud that's going on.
It's very concerning to know that right now you have politicians who are passing these bills knowing that it is violating the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Take note of the music too in the background. The doom, like this is documentary 101. You put on some music that implies a mood behind a bunch of insinuation and gobbledygook, and it really seems to legitimize the points they're making, doesn't it? It feels more real with that music in there.
They don't care. And so I've been working the floor, handing them actual text. I said, did you just read the text? Because the author of the bill is lying. She says, oh no, it has nothing to do with the Nick Shirleys. It has nothing to do with citizen journalists. But when you read the text, it's plain English. It would make it a crime to post a video of evidence of fraud, and it would, result in very costly fines. So we want this language to be removed from the bill. Actually, I want the bill to be killed entirely, but at the very least, they need to take this provision out. The Stop Nick Shirley Act needs to be removed from the bill.
In this bill, it talks about immigrant services. It's very vague. That means healthcare, translation services, attorney services, daycares. It's very vague on what they're trying to say this bill is. And it's being backed by church.
Is it vague? Because I remember us looking at a whole long list of definitions that were very specific.
The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights LA, which is a taxpayer-funded organization that isn't really providing services. They're really organizing violent protests in LA. They're agitators, and they don't want people capturing their bad behavior on video. This is designed to protect them in the activities that they're doing.
And if this bill were to be passed, organizations like Chirla, they would not even have to disclose the amount of money they're getting from taxpayers.
Correct.
Isn't that because it's already publicly available? Like, nothing in this bill removes that publicly available resource, as far as I can tell.
Organizations are if they have nothing to hide, why have this bill? And the way they define immigrant services is so broad that a fake hospice could say, well, one of our fake patients, one of our non-existent patients could have been an immigrant, so therefore we get protection under the bill as well. It is absolutely a bill designed to hide the fraud that's going on in the state of California, and the politicians clearly know that the investigative journalists are on the case, and they got to stop the investigative journalists before it's too late, before the public learns the truth.
And do you think there's a conflict of interest with Mia Bonta, husband being the AG, the Attorney General of the state? Meanwhile, he's trying to take credit for exposing the fraud. Meanwhile, she's trying to silence those that actually have exposed the fraud.
Look, when you showed up and visited the fake hospices in LA and Southern California, you showed he wasn't doing his job. This isn't hard to find. He literally was ignoring it. And so you embarrassed him. You embarrassed him by showing that he's not doing his job to protect taxpayer funds. He then calls a press conference last week and says, oh, look, I took out 21 fraudsters. I'm thinking that's just the tip of the iceberg. And now we've dismantled the fraud rings in California. No, they're not dismantled. You have 21. When you indict 2,100 people, then maybe we're starting to turn the corner.
I think that this isn't overall wrong. I think that there's easily a case to be made that there is fraud with that level of increase and with the way the system is set up. I think, and I said this in my video covering him last time, I think that there's plenty of fraud that Nick Shirley actually might have stumbled on. Issue is, guys like Nick Shirley are not proving anything. They're just harassing people and doxing them by showing their personal information without proof that they're doing something wrong. Nick Shirley thinks that showing an empty office proves that the business is fake. Nick Shirley thinks that not being able to see children at a daycare proves that the daycare is fraudulent. And the reason that those businesses are still up is because you need more than just that. You very well likely might have stumbled on something. That might be true. I'm not taking that away from him. What I am taking away from him is the idea that he's doing some sort of independent journalism. What he's doing is taking notes from the state, going to those businesses, filming himself asking questions, not getting answers, and then saying it's fake, which is not proof. Being a skeptic, which is fine, but there's a huge difference.
To me, as certain people.
Certain people. You did his job. You did his job. The job that he should have been doing all along. You did his job. You embarrassed.
Yeah, this guy's just crazy, and Dip End is correct. All these things and mistakes he's saying he could have avoided, they're just basic journalism rules, but he's clearly confusing journalism with vlogging. Absolutely.
And now Mia Bonta, she doesn't want it to happen again, so she's trying to stop citizen journalists.
The Stop Nick Shirley Act is a direct act on all of us. No, it's not. This is the typical conservative line where it's like, hey, I'm under attack, but they're not really after me. They're after all of you. I'm just in the way. And this is a way of like self-aggrandizing and making yourself seem cooler. Like, this act does apply directly to people like Nick Shirley, but also people like Tyler Oliveira. But that's because they go around and they do vlogging. They do vlogging and not journalism. They're just recording something and talking about it. There's no proof. There's weird stuff. There's definitely stuff that seems fishy and strange, but there's a gap between seems fishy and proven fraud. And I'm all for getting to the proven fraud part, but you have to put in work. It continues, by trying to silence and intimidate journalists. Oh no. By trying to silence and intimidate journalists, they are trying to hide the truth from you. I think he meant to say by trying to silence and intimidate journalists, they are trying to hide the truth from you. I'll admit there's some weird connections. I never like when family members are at different parts of the government, like when a boss is dating, a subordinate. I think there's definitely weird things with that for sure. But that, again, is not automatically, it's fake. Like, was she elected? Was he elected? Were they both elected by constituents? So there's things to consider there. I think it's weird. I'm not a fan of it. But this act is not trying to silence and intimidate journalists. This act, as the text reads, is just trying to stop people from being victims of stochastic terror and having their information doxed unnecessarily. There's a reason that investigations take place and authorities go through and actually verify information, do interviews, corroborate stories, compare accounts and details to make sure that everything lines up. And that's because there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of reasons why something might happen. And before you go and make a claim that something is for sure fraud, you need proof. And this act just seeks to sort that out. So once again, Nick Shirley on his hack game, on his intimidation game, trying to get things framed a certain way. But boy, howdy, it just really is not. I think that's plenty. I think we've covered the Nick Shirley thing. Honestly, another situation where they're trying to take a bill that has very specific purposes and pretend it does something else. It's not a problem if you're doing a real investigation. It becomes a problem if you post a YouTube video where you make wide aspersions without the proper evidence. That's where it becomes a problem. And let's be really, really, really fair. Even if this bill passes as written, what would happen is Nick Shirley would record a video and then someone would have to actually initiate and press charges. And then there would be a trial. And then they would have to prove that he violated that law. And then they would sentence him. So it's not like the moment he posted a video, he would be arrested and fined. That's not how things work in America. From me, Nathan TC, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Be kind to yourselves, and I love you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye.